According to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, 600,000 people are reported missing in the U.S. every year. When these cases go cold, families rely on tenacious investigators and public awareness to keep the story out there. They just want answers. And in this week's episode of our podcast, What Remains, one family takes us along on their heartbreaking journey to find their son.
My name is Chris Thomas. My son went missing November 25th, 2016. And we still don't have the justice, and we have not found him.
But Chris Thomas is pretty convinced his son Cole is dead.
WRAL's Amanda Lamb joins us with more about what we can expect in this upcoming episode. And Amanda, the disappearance of Cole Thomas back in Benson in 2016, that was something we covered quite extensively. I remember covering that story myself.
Absolutely. I think all of us who are reporters at WRAL touched this case at one time, and it's a heartbreaking case. Most of the cases that we cover in What Remains are solved, but we really wanted to highlight a few that are still in progress because, again, this family has wished and hoped for so long to have answers. And you will hear a lot of news coverage in our episode about all the things we've done over the years to cover this case.
Yeah, and in that coverage, there was a lot of massive searches. A lot of groups also took part. We caught up with them in certain occasions, but still there's been no break in finding exactly where he might be.
Right, and that's one of the hardest things, I think, for these families is not to have any resolution, to have any answers. They actually arrested several people during this process, hoping that they might be able to turn state's evidence and say, hey, this is where the body is, but they never did. They are convinced this is a homicide investigation, but they never were able to get the evidence to actually charge anyone with murder. And so this family is still left kind of hanging in limbo, and they say they won't give up.
And just like we've heard throughout the show, there's always hope. There are people who are out there, they're firmly committed to helping these families find some kind of solution. They, like you said, are not giving up.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that's really interesting, you have all the searchers, right? You have the volunteer searchers, you have the organizations that search, but you also have all of the scientists, the forensic people, the DNA scientists, and the investigators who refuse to give up. And they have very special skills. So when they do find remains in this area, or maybe not in this area, they might be able to connect those remains to Cole Thomas and give this family the peace they deserve and need.
Yeah, they're looking for peace. It was interesting, though, to see and hear that he also mentioned that as far as resolution goes, he's pretty convinced at the same time that he won't be coming back home.
And that's true. And, you would think that most families, this would be so bittersweet to get an answer that your son has died. But you know what? They just want that answer. It doesn't matter to them at this point. They want the answer, and they want to be able to lay their son to rest.
We continue to tell this story. Amanda, thank you so much. It's always good hanging around you. Thank you so much for your time this morning. You can listen to episodes 1 through 9 of What Remains. That's on Apple Podcast or wherever you get your podcast. Additional information, blogs, and transcripts, those can be found at whatremainspodcast.com.